No. Yes, there we go. There's a video about a whole bunch of books I don't know a whole lot about, but I think maybe I need to. Crikey. These are in absolutely no order, because why would I put any kind of order to things? I don't know a ton about it. Should I get it? Ugh. Hi everyone, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. For today's video, I wanted to talk about a bunch of books that I haven't read. And not books that are on my bookshelf, but rather books that I keep coming across. And I was at Barnes & Noble like a week or so ago, looking for a book because I had a coupon and a gift card. And I literally went in with one book in mind, but I cannot resist circling every table, walking all the aisles, and just looking for the next best thing. And what I find sort of time and again is I keep seeing a lot of books which I know are popular books, which I know are talked about, which I know are beloved, not even like new books per se, but I keep coming across them and I'm curious about some of them, and not all of them, but maybe, I don't know. But I just got to thinking, kind of in this vein of BookTube for sure has opened up my eyes to authors I haven't read before, to stories I never would have read before. And while I haven't universally loved everything that I've read, I have discovered some huge gems of books and authors. I've talked about Frederick Bachman, I've talked about Taylor Jenkins Reid, I've talked about Gail Hunneman. These are authors I would not have picked up, I don't think, on my own. I might have found my way to Taylor Jenkins Reid. That I will be honest about. But it might have taken me a lot longer, and I don't know that I would have found some of these other authors. So I have very comfortably lived in a thriller land for a very long time with a smattering of other things. Whereas years ago, I lived a lot in chick lit and contemporary and dipped some toes in YA, and have always had thrillers there, but it was a more even balance. So more than anybody needs to know or cares about, I've just sort of been trying to broaden my scope, seeing what else is out there. And there were a few tables in the bookstore that were kind of classics or must reads or much loved or whatever. And classics didn't mean it was Jane Austen type of classics or Charles Dickens types of classics. But anyway, I compiled a bit of a list, again, books I keep coming back to, books I keep coming over. And there's some that definitely pique my interest that I think I want to read, but I just thought I would talk about all of them, solicit a little bit of feedback, and just chat about some books. So the first book I am going to mention is one I actually did wind up picking up from my library sale, and that's The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. So I got this last month for $2. I figured, how can I resist? I loved The Secret History, which is definitely a book that people either love it and get it or don't love it, can't stand it. I am in the camp of love. I have happily lived in a one Donna Tartt book life for a very long time, but I hear so much about this book. It weighs 1,000 pounds. It could be a doorstopper. It's about a boy. There's something to do with a painting. It takes place in Manhattan. They've made it into a movie. It's coming out this year. It's giant. It gets rave reviews. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. And yes, so tons of hype. I finally pulled the trigger. One step closer. It now lives in my house. So yeah, that's The Goldfinch. The next book that I come across and pick up over and over again, but keep putting down, is Welcome to the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. And I've heard a lot of really good stuff about this one, and I actually paused to read a little something about it this time round. And I don't know if it's because I am in a Daisy Jones and the Six kind of a mode right now, that the idea of a rock and roll story appeals to me. But this is about kind of this aging punk rocker named Benny, and then this woman who works for him, Sasha. And it is told apparently in present day and past tense, and they each have secrets, and I don't know that they ever learn each other's secrets, but we as the reader learn their secrets. But punk rock vibes, dual timelines, which is something I love, dual perspectives, which is something I love, and some good hype and good reviews around a book itself. This is one that I definitely feel like I might be missing out on something. And again, maybe it's because I'm in a Daisy Jones headspace, but this one sounds interesting to me more so than it ever has before. The next book, which I already have admitted I'm going to read, and that's Rebekah by Daphne du Maurier. And this is another book that, again, consistently comes up within BookTube, outside of BookTube, just sort of referenced as like a great, dark, mystery, atmospheric, kind of one of the earlier books where a location, in this case Manderley, is, I think, as much of a character as anybody else is. And my curiosity has sort of always been there around this book, but at the same time, I don't know why I've hesitated to, with the exception of kind of like Agatha Christie, hesitated to read anything that wasn't published in the past like 4 decades. I mean, it's pathetic. Like, what am I doing? So this is about a woman whose name we never learn, and she meets a widower. I want to say maybe like on a boat or something like that, and gets swept off her feet, and they get married, and he brings her home to his home, Manderley, where his sort of like the essence and sort of figurative ghost, but I don't believe it's a literal ghost story, of his wife Rebekah is everywhere. And it sounds really just sort of like creepy and mysterious and interesting. I have heard nothing but great things about her writing. Like I said, Manderley in and of itself is a character. And when people talked about the death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware, this was referenced a lot. Interestingly enough, it came up multiple times because I did write it down in Thriller Fest last week as a book that was consistently recommended by thriller writers kind of across genres, across ages. So I definitely am going to make this one happen. I tried to buy it at my library sale. It was just such a crummy, icky copy. I couldn't bear to bring it home with me. But I'm going to find a way to bring it into my life, and I'm going to read it. The next book that I also hear about kind of over and over again from thriller writers and readers all around is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. And this book is really talked about as like the first true crime book. And it is about the murder of the Clutter family in Kansas. And it's like the savage, brutal murder of this family. And I believe Capote like reconstructs sort of the crime and the investigation and the trial and the eventual capture of the 2 people who murdered this family. And he obviously, Truman Capote himself is a legend. I haven't read any of his books. Why this one appeals to me more than anything, don't ask. I don't know. But I kind of got a little bit of the true crime bug after reading I'll Find You in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, excuse me. And I have already talked about how I love watching true crime things, but more sort of contemporary stories like John Bonet or OJ or the Menendez brothers, and I know it speaks volumes about me. But I'm curious about this one. This is one that I do feel like I'm missing out on. I feel like I definitely need to be in the right mood for it, but I think the story and the writing and just sort of Capote himself sort of all balled together make this an intriguing book that I need to get on my list somewhere. On a lighter note, I've never read The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Am I too old for this? Has my time passed? Is this something that is like an essential read that everyone should have under their belt? I watched the movie, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Mae Whitman is in it, who I love. She was amazing in Parenthood. She was amazing in this. I loved the music. I loved the vibe. I loved the friendships. I loved the chemistry. Is the book the same? Is watching the movie enough? Am I completely missing a huge opportunity by not having read this book? I feel like it's super short also. Let me know, because this is one that I keep wondering about, but never to the point that I've bought it. So let me know if I should be like hunting this baby down in my library. I feel like I should know more about The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson, but I don't. I know it's like Lisbeth Salander, I think. There's a new movie with Claire Foy, but going back to the original trilogy, I don't know if it's like spy stuff. She's a hacker, I think. These are other books where I feel like people either like love them or don't, say you should read them, say you should pass on them. Am I missing something with these? I've never had like a huge pull towards them. I remember kind of like years ago when they were all the hypes and people that I worked with were like raving about it, but at the time it didn't appeal to me and it just sort of like fell off my radar. But for whatever reason, some books that I've picked, it winds up as like recommendations. And again, I saw it when I was at the bookstore. Am I missing out by not reading these books? Is this something I should just let go? Have I completely missed the boat on it all? I'm just trying to hop on a hype train from 10 years ago. I don't know. So let me know if anyone has read these books either, because I don't know, like I say, if I'm missing out on something or if I should just let this one pass me by. I have talked about how I have never read J.K. Rowling, but The Casual Vacancy continues to intrigue me. So I did get all of the Robert Galbraith books that she did, The Cuckoo's Calling and all that, actually right here, which I haven't started to read yet because I had them not that long ago. And The Casual Vacancy doesn't have great reviews. It's kind of mixed. I think there are people who completely maybe didn't enjoy the story per se, but appreciate it for what it is, for her writing, for the strength of her storytelling, for the strength of her characters. Even if they didn't enjoy the story itself, I think there's a lot of people who can respect it for what it was. And then I think there's a whole camp of people who were like, how did the woman who created Harry Potter create this? Because it's gritty and it's dark and it's sex and it's drugs and it's uncomfortable situations and it's talking about politics and it's talking about things that make people uncomfortable. So I think there's a whole group of people who didn't like it because of what the content of the story was and maybe disregarded how well the story was written. So it is a book that I am very much intrigued by. I went down the J.K. Rowling rabbit hole, and I am fascinated by her. I've talked about this in other videos. I often am more and more intrigued to read a specific writer when I learn more about the writer, him or herself, and I become fascinated with the writer. So let me know if anyone has read this. I am completely down for the mysteries. I'm completely down for that series, but for whatever reason, Casual Vacancy just keeps sort of like tugging at me, and I feel like I need to sort of scratch the itch, so to speak, and get it out of my system. So 2 other books where I have seen the movie and is there any point in reading the book. Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. I can never say this man's name. Palahniuk. So give me some Brad Pitt and Ed Norton on screen any day. I watched it. I enjoyed it. I have heard that the book is better. It's definitely dark. Tyler Durden, the whole nine. Do I do it? Even though I know the twist from having watched the movie? Am I missing out on great writing? Am I missing out on great storytelling? Again, it keeps coming up over and over again as a book that is sort of an essential read or one that people talk about consistently. Is it just hype, or should I be reading this book? In that same vein, I've got American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. Patrick Bateman, 80s, Wall Street, greed, psycho, killer, all of it. Saw the movie. So disturbingly good. I mean, so many great actors in this. So graphic, so gross, so good. I don't know. Again, if I've already seen the movie and know kind of all the twistedness of it, I have never read a Bret Easton Ellis book. I know there is so much sort of fanfare for him and his writing and his storytelling. So again, is this a book that I should be reading? It was on the table again at Barnes & Noble. Like all of these they all were like popping up on different tables and I'm just keep seeing them. It's like I'm being haunted by them in some ways. But like, am I Am I missing something huge? I'm just be curious if anyone read it. Is the cringe factor the same? Is it better? Are there parts of the book that don't make it into the movie? Is it creepier yet? I think the visualization in that movie was just like so well done. Again, even though it was so graphic and gross and disturbing. Yeah, it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot about a lot. So haven't read it. Do I need to read it? My curiosity on this one is also still really high. Yeah, a lot of ums and should I's going on in this video. So send help. Do I need to read American Psycho, or do I not need that in my head? Another in that true crime vein is The Black Dahlia by James Ellroy. So I watched the TNT movie, or like miniseries, I Am the Night with Chris Pine, which I think was kind of like a bit of a twist on the Black Dahlia case. And so I think it was like the late 40s, a woman's body found in Hollywood, sort of like brutally slain, cut, pieces, all of it. And a lot of it was, I have not seen the movie The Black Dahlia. So I only know about this, what I read about it. And part of when I was watching I Am the Night, I kind of dug deeper into the Black Dahlia case, because I was trying to find out, even though one of the women who worked on it was, I'm blanking on her first name, last name is Hodel. Her grandfather was one of the people who was a suspect of it. So she was part of the actual TNT show. So I knew that there was some authenticity to it, but I wasn't sure sort of how much was fact and how much was fiction. So I started to read a little bit about it, sort of in a Wikipedia, Googling kind of a sense, but not the book. So this sort of put the book back kind of on my curiosity list, and sort of the police and the investigation and who were the suspects, and again, kind of true crime-ish. It was definitely a brutal case. It definitely sort of dominated the papers and conversation and everything else, because it was just such a horrific case in Hollywood. So is The Black Dahlia worth reading? Is this something that is going to give me the true crime feels? Someone had asked on my channel in one of the comments for some recommendations on true crime, and I actually am not a huge true crime reader, but since again I read the Golden State Killer book, my curiosity is piqued. But I also know that there's only some books that I think I will be comfortable with, because it's one thing for me to read kind of a grisly fiction book because it's fiction, versus a true crime book because it's real people and it really happened. So for whatever reason, the way I can distance myself from fiction versus true crime is completely different. So I can read graphic, disturbing stuff, but I can't always read reality, graphic, disturbing stuff, if that makes any sense. So Black Dahlia, back to it. James Ellroy. Is this a book that's worth reading? Is it not? Is it good true crime? Is it well written? Is it well done? Is the story there for me? Should I be there for the story? Please tell me if you've read this book. And the last book on my list is Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. And this is moderately embarrassing. So I would swear I have never read this book. And I know it was a Netflix show. I've talked about Margaret Atwood. I read Handmaid's Tale. I feel like I kind of jumped to Robber Bride. I went back to like Cat's Eye. Like I was a little bit all over the place. And in a land long before Goodreads, long before you could track what you were reading online, I used to keep a notebook where I wrote down all the books that I was reading. Because I just, you know, I'm a journaler. I write things down. I've always sort of kept track. I'm not like a scrapbooker, but I've always like kept track of things and have like memory boxes and things that I've done and places I've been and all of that kind of stuff. I document. I'm a documentary kind of a person. So I was going back through that book because I found it during kind of my bookshelf cleaning, and I wrote down that I read Alias Grace, like, I don't know, nearly like 20 years ago. I have no memory of reading this book, you guys. And I went to look it up because I never watched the Netflix show, and it's about this woman, and it's like the 1840s, and she is accused of killing her employer, I want to say his mistress, and the housekeeper. And I want to say she denies that she did it, maintains her innocence, but has like no memory of it, I think. And I was reading this one article about it, and it was saying it was sort of, you know, people sort of on the cusp of addressing mental illness and seeing mental illness as something that plagues people and something that affects people and something that affects people's behavior and something that is real, and it is not. You know, it is a real illness that is diagnosed and that needs to be treated. And all of it sounds like extremely intriguing to me. So you have like the murder and, you know, her lack of memory and the mental illness spin. I shouldn't say spin because it sounds bad. The mental illness element of it sounds really intriguing to me. And I mean, I've read a lot of books in my life, as I'm sure we all have, and I don't remember all of them in grave detail, but I would like swear on a stack of Margaret Atwood's that I have never read this book before. And this is another one where I do genuinely feel like I'm missing something. So The Robber Bride is on my reread list for this year. I'm definitely going to reread Handmaid's Tale before The Testaments comes out. I'm going to read The Testaments when it comes out. So I don't know if there's room in 2019 for Alias Grace, because I think it is basically the size of the Goldfinch. But do I need to make this any kind of a priority? Do I need to for sure add this to my list? The intrigue is there. I love Margaret Atwood's writing. I think she's a beautiful writer and a beautiful storyteller. I mean, I feel like I am one of the characters in the tropes that I love where I have no memory of this. I can't believe I would have read this book and forgotten about it. So I don't know. Maybe I did. It was a long time ago. But it will feel like a first time read. I can guarantee you that much. So have you read it? Do I need to read it? Do I need to add it to my Margaret Atwood canon of books that I'm reading? So that's my list of books that the last time through the bookstore just spoke to me again and again. And I really feel like the universe was messing with me because they were on like different tables or like end caps of the aisles, or like, you know, like you go down the aisle and like all the books are sideways and one of them is faced forward, and it would be like Rebekah facing forward. Like I 100% felt like the universe was messing with me and trying to distract me. I went into that bookstore with a mission. I needed to walk around and look at everything in sight. Spoiler alert, I left with the book I went in for, which was Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I'm not at all unhappy about it, but I am really curious about these books. So let me know if you've read any of them, if you recommend any of them, if you think I should just like let some of them go and they're not even worth my time. I'm cool with that. I'm here for the opinions. I'm here for some feedback. Would love to know what books are kind of on your list, or if there's anything sort of glaringly obvious that maybe I'm missing, because I have no doubt that I'm missing a whole lot. But thank you guys so much for watching today. If you like what you see, make sure to hit that subscribe button because there's more book stuff coming your way, and I will see you in those videos. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.